Okay, so we begin our course on measurement by first looking at perimeter. So when we talk about the perimeter, we're essentially defining that as the distance around the edge of a particular shape or the border around a shape. So an analogy I'll give now to you quickly to sort of illustrate what we mean by perimeter is, say I have this kind of poorly drawn rectangle, it's the best I could do, on, and this is going to represent a field of some kind. And I'm going to go for a run around here. So this is me, and I'm just going to run along this border. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to run around this thing anti-clockwise. Now, the perimeter we're talking about is essentially the distance I'm going to cover running around this border here. So this is a rectangle. So I'm going to, for example, give this a couple of dimensions, right? Some distances that I'm going to be covering. So say this field is, let's say, 100 meters in this direction. And because this is a rectangle, we're also going to get 100 meters here. And we're going to have 50 meters along here. This is obviously not to scale. But yeah, I'm going to be covering this distance. So if I start from, say, a corner here, I'm essentially going to run around here. So I'm going to run along our border. So I'm going to first cover 100 meters here. I'm going to cover an additional 50 running along, another 100, and another 50. Now, if we were to calculate the perimeter, this distance around the edge, all we do here is I'm going to write P for perimeter, and that equals to the sum of all of my edges. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm first going to cover 100 meters around my first edge, plus 50, plus 100, plus another 50. And I'm going to end up covering a total of 300 meters running around this particular field I've drawn. So we define the perimeter as essentially the distance around the edge of a shape, and this is all of the distances summed. So we're looking at essentially the total distance. Another quick thing, I'll just clear this stuff up because this is a short video. I'm just going to give a bit of essentially a good way to remember this. So we can also think of this as, well, if I have my starting rectangle here with the same dimensions, and if I were just to decompose this into essentially a straight line. So I'm going to take my distance here and take my distance here and this one here as well. Oops. Now, these distances, sorry, it's a bit poorly drawn, but if I would essentially fold out all of the dimensions, all of the sides of my shape, I'm going to cover from here to here 300 meters. This is all of the borders just essentially broken up and placed next to each other in a straight line. I had my 50 meters here, my 100 here, my 100, I think this was the 50 again, 50 meters, and 100. These were all of my borders, all of the edges of my shape, and I've just put those in a straight line. So if this is a better way for you to visualize it, that's awesome. Or if it's easier just to remember it as essentially just summing all of the sides, that is how we find our perimeter.